Good evening, everyone. I see that I think most of our trainees have joined in. Do we also have the trainer Priyanka and Chanchal here? Do we have Chanchal and Priyanka here?
Huh, Kavya, they're just joining. I'm here.
Oh, hi, Navya.
Yeah, they're just joining.
Okay,
Give me.
we will wait until they join then.
So, how about our SMEs? They have joined.
They will be joining in 2 minutes.
Meanwhile, I'll ask our professor to join quickly.
Sure, sure.
Chanchal is here.
Hi,
Hi.
Chanchal.
Yeah, hi Kavya. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. How have you been?
I'm also doing great. Thank you.
Okay, so we are just waiting for 2 more minutes for our SMEs to join in. We'll just wait.
Sure.
Good evening, Pratik and Preeti. We are just waiting for 2 more minutes. Just need few more people to join in, and then we will start it off.
Hello everyone.
Sure, Kavya.
Hello everyone.
Hi Vasu.
Hello everyone.
All right, excellent. I think we have most of the people present here. All right, well, good evening, and thank you all for joining in to this call, all the SMEs, the trainer, as well as the trainees here. Thank you so much for your time. So, a few days back, we had a midpoint review wherein we just had our um, SMEs connect with our trainees and understand where they are at their training and what exact juncture they are, if there is anything more that they need to look at, just a way of directing them or channeling them towards the right place. So now that we are reaching the end of our overall training, we just wanted our SMEs to connect with with our trainees to understand what they have accomplished entirely in the training so far. So if you notice, I have also attached a PDF of the project that our trainees have been working on the invite. Um, what we'll do here is in the next few hours, we'll have our trainees present the work that they have done, towards the end of which our SMEs can have a Q&A round with them to understand further on their, training or development so far. Is that fine for everyone?
Yes, Kavya.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine.
Okay, perfect. So, Chanchal, can we have our trainees start with the presentation?
Yeah, sure. So guys, please start it team wise.
My screen. Is it visible?
Yes, the branch is visible now.
Okay.
I will start. So, good evening, all SMEs. And today we are the Amadeus QA GET team, and this is the final presentation of all the training we had with Rashian team. Going ahead, next slide, please. So, this is the agenda. Today we will be introducing you to all the trainees, and we will give you a walkthrough of the journey we had during our training session, what all we learned and what all different projects we performed and what all we have what all difficulties we faced and what all achievements we made throughout our training journey, as well as a final capstone project, which was ROS, where we did manual and automated testing both. Going forward, this is the QA team: Astha, Ankit, Ardra, Devika, Dhiman, Prachi, Priyank, Rohit, Sahil, Shivam, Subhrangshu, and myself, Pranav. And the next slide, please. So this is our journey. We had a learning roadmap where we followed an iterative method, where we learned one thing in one iteration and then we developed on it on the next iteration. On the initial iteration, we learned the basics of Java and how to think with objects and what are databases and how it works basically, as well as web essentials. In the next iteration, we learned more about object-oriented programming, developing applications, as well as agile methodology. The next iteration, we learned more about abstract classes, about IO stream, file handling, and we started with the basics of QA, what QA really is, all the theoretical part of QA, as well as manual testing. The following iteration, we deep dived more into QA. We learned about API testing using the Postman. We learned RESTful APIs. We learned how to automate testing with Selenium, as well as we performed automation on different websites to check our knowledge, and we did with Selenium IDE as well as WebDriver. We also learned about how to model a testing project and how it should look like, as well as we learned how to use TestNG. In the final iteration, we did a capstone project, which was ROS, where we performed exploratory testing on Azure DevOps, as well as we made an automation testing script using Selenium. Going forward, these were the different labs we performed. Some of the challenging labs were, of course, the ROS, which was the final capstone project, as well as we had some good challenging labs like 8 Queens, where we had to deep dive into development part as well as look into GUIs and all. So that was a good learning experience for us. Get to AHA was the first time we were introduced to Azure DevOps and how to log our test cases as well as our bugs on DevOps and coordinate between the teams. That was a great learning experience for us as well. And Ardra will take over from here for the next slide.
Thank you, Pranav. Hello, everyone. My name is Andra. So, during the course of our training, we've been introduced to a lot of new technologies and we've trained on them. So, primarily, we've used the coding language Java, and for that, we've used software such as Eclipse and Postman. We've tried out Maven projects. We've logged our errors using Log4j. We've tested using TestNG and JUnit. We've used GitHub and GitLab to share and collaborate with others. We've used Azure DevOps to log our bugs and test cases. And many more have been new and introduced to us. And this has given us much practical experience. Moving on to the next slide. So, as Pranav already mentioned our iterations, the way to put it into action was through our training, which was both the self-study phase as well as the instructor-led phase. So, in our as a training overview, we started with the programming essentials, and then we understood each concepts in objects as well as web essentials and others. Then we moved on to testing, and and a bit more on Java. So in our instructor-led sessions, we have all these concepts were revisited and understood again with the help. And in here, we also did several labs and case studies to help with this. Moving on to the next slide. So coming to our assessments during the both the instructor-led sessions as well as the self-study, we did many assessments which were both MCQ based and also coding based. Now, initially, some of the assessments were a bit tough for us because some of us were starting out as new people, and some of the concepts were new to us. But later on, like the last assessment we took was the automation testing assessment, and which is much easier to follow for us since we learned much through our training. So I think we've improved in our assessment. Coming on to collab labs, one of the collab labs we did, that was Bank of Success. Now, in the initial part of our instructor-led sessions were mostly based on Java and the OO concepts, and the Bank of Success problem was given us in 3 levels, so that we could understand the OO concepts by implementing them through this case study. And we could also collaborate with our team members and also our instructor. Going on to the next slide. Okay, we can see that here here the Bank of Success, the code we've written is shown here. And if you see, we have implemented concepts such as abstraction, data encapsulation, inheritance, and we've understood about collections and exception handling through doing it in our project. And this has been helpful through not just studying the concepts, but also practicing them. Now I invite Rohit for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Adra. Hello guys, this is Rohit. After completing all the labs, case studies and assessments, we took in a lot of new information. So after that, we were given a live application where we implemented all the learning we have done. In that, we have got a Get to AHA web app where we basically did manual testing, especially exploratory testing, in which we understood that basically exploring all the pages and functionalities in the application. So we created some end-to-end user scenarios, and we were distributed into 2 teams, and then we executed those test scenarios and logged the bugs and test cases in the Azure DevOps. This was the first time we got introduced to Azure DevOps, so it was a little bit tough to understand it. So then we got a demo on how to create work items and queries. So it was easier, and it was great learning experience. Then we logged all the work items and bugs in DevOps, and using basic queries, we created a dashboard which looks like this. So as you can see, these are a little small number of bugs found by the 2 teams, but actually we learned quite a lot in this phase, because this is the first time we implemented all the learnings we have done in a real life application. So moving on, Subhrangshu will take over.
Audible? Hello.
Yes, Subhrangshu, you're audible.
Okay. Thank you, Rohit. So now I'll be taking it on from here. So after getting a taste of what QA feels like, what it is to work on a QA project, we moved on to the final iteration where we implemented the following learnings. That includes unit testing using TestNG framework. So we implement this framework. This was certainly new to us because we had been practicing in JUnit. So we adapted our code to TestNG framework and used that to implement it in a project. Next, we moved on to a data-driven approach where instead of hard coding values inside into the project, we used an Excel sheet, and from there we imported data such as credentials or URL. We learned about project management with Maven by adding dependencies and not using jar files. We had a training session and an implementation of manual testing. Then we moved on to test management with Azure DevOps, where we again implemented Azure DevOps into our project. And finally, we moved on to our automation using Selenium WebDriver, and our code language base was Java. We finally ended with reporting our findings with extend reports and using TestNG, and we reviewed our code with our instructors on the final day. So this is the caption project that we worked on. That was a Restaurant One solution developed by Pratyan Technologies. So it is software that is designed to boost a restaurant's productivity, and it helps the restaurant to provide seamless services to its customers. So it handles operations such as accounting, cash management, personnel management, inventory management, and so on. So you get a comprehensive solution in a single destination. So this is the testing plan we developed for ROS after a few days of exploratory testing. So first we tested the admin portal, which took care of basic functionalities such as creation, deletion, and editing restaurants, clients, users. We were given a day for exploratory testing the dashboard, and we used that for test designing, bug logging into Azure DevOps, and created subsequent dashboards for interpreting the data. Then we moved on to manual testing and automation testing suites. which were created using Selenium and Eclipse. We modeled it using a page object model for each page, and test cases were designed and scripted using the TestNG framework that I mentioned before. We took a data-driven approach where we used Excel file to input data into the code. And finally, we generated test reports using extend reports, along with screenshots of bugs, if applicable. So here, now you'll see a set of snippets of the different pages that we tested on as a group. So here, we move on to the login page where you can, this is the where you can input your credentials and log into the dashboard. There's an option to also reset your password if in case a user forgets it. You can input your email address and you can send a verification code to the email, and then you can log in again. This is the initial dashboard, which contains the clients, the restaurants, the total users, and the ROS team details. So here we can see that we can edit a client using by editing their basic information, address, contact. Next, we move on to the restaurants page, where we can see the restaurant details, which can be linked to clients. Here we can edit the restaurant page details. Then we move on to restaurant account settings, where we can add petty cache details or PTQs or third-party info. And then we move on to the users page, which depicts different users that are added to the dashboard. Here we can edit their data as well. And finally, we move on to the ROS team page, where we can add team members to the page. Here we can edit their details as well. So these are the pages that we have worked on. We can also add a new user. And next, I'll be leaving the floor to Diwan for the following talks.
Am I audible? Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, thanks, Subramsu. So as part of the exploratory testing for ROS web app, we basically did the manual testing again, and we use Azure DevOps to log those test cases and the bugs which we encountered. This gave us an opportunity to solidify a concept to how to use Azure DevOps for logging the test cases and the bugs which we encountered. Next slide, please. So as we can see, this is a workspace in the Azure DevOps, and we can add various work items, which includes the test cases and the bugs which we encounter. These are the several test cases and bugs which we had logged. So now Sahil will be taking over and explaining how test cases and bugs are logged in detail.
Thank you, Diman. So as you guys can see, this is a snapshot of how we've sampled a particular test case using Azure DevOps, where the following test case, which is check whether a restaurant can be edited. You can see the user as well as the shared steps which the team has incorporated while logging in this test case, along with, as you can see on the bottom, the relevant bug which has been accompanied, which is linked to this particular test case, right? These are the particular shared steps which we used for the module our team did, which was open the ROS web app, click on the sign-in options, inputting the credentials, and then basically going on to the landing page. So essentially, this helped us to understand in detail how extensively we can document a particular test case. As Diman already mentioned, exploratory testing twice on a live web app allowed us to have a firm understanding of what Azure DevOps is and what all features it enables the QAs to use while working on a live project. And the next slide will show you how we've logged in a bug. Again, the same things, we've managed to log in the repro steps as well as the acceptance criteria for a particular bug, and along with a screenshot of the UI attachment of the UI, since this is a UI bug, which was subscription which was expiring below a pass date. So as you can see, we're working on it on 7th September, but a subscription was already expired, was still visible. So that was the bug. So basically, this was just an overview of how Azure DevOps helped us in manual testing. And before we proceeded on to the automation part, it helped us understand in detail how to follow extensively the methodologies used to in a testing framework. I'll give it over to Asta to continue now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahil. So next, like after we were done with all the work items and logging in the test cases and bugs, this was the last phase of our manual testing where we generated the dashboard. And this dashboard basically summarizes about all the test cases and bugs that each team had found. And this was the last phase. After this, like we moved on to the automation process. So next slide, please. So basically, each one of us was assigned a certain set of test cases, which we were supposed to test manually first and then automate those test cases using the Selenium framework. So automated testing is basically a method in software testing that leverages various automation tools to control the execution of tests instead of a human performing the same task. And we can also compare the actual test results with the predicted and expected results. So for the automation testing project, we use the Selenium WebDriver with Java because it's an open source framework and it helps us to validate web applications across different browsers and platforms. And next, Ankit would be explaining more about the automation testing frameworks and the page object model that we worked upon.
Thank you, Asta. So the automation testing of the project was started by creating the page object models of the pages of the website. Page object model is a design pattern in Selenium that creates an object model for storing all the web elements of web pages. So instead of using locators of web elements in test cases, it is stored in separate classes so that it helps in reducing code duplication and also improves in test case maintenance. So the advantages of using page object models are it helps in easy maintenance of the code, helps to reuse the code, it offers better readability and reliability of the scripts. So next page. So in this project, page object models were created for all the pages of the website. Testbase was created to initialize the driver setup for the test cases. All the utilities like taking screenshots, reading from Excel files, etc. were kept under different packages. And page object models of a page containing locators of elements of the page and functions for actions like clicking on them, getting text from them, etc. were stored under different packages. So next slide. So as you can see, the first one is a page object model of a login page which we have created. So the web elements like username, the column for username, the field for password and login button were created, and the functions like login was initialized in the page object model. Also, you can see the structure of the page objects which we created in this project, and all the pages were classified based on their functionality, and they were kept under different packages. Next page. Okay, so element locators. They helps us in identifying each web elements uniquely so that various operations like clicking and getting text from them can be performed on them. The different types of element locators are CSS ID, CSS class name, name attribute, XPath, link test, partial link test, and HTML tag name. Moving on to the next slide. The slide shows various web locators used in our web project. So mainly IDs were used for locating the web elements. Also, XPath were also used for the elements for which IDs were not available. Next slide. The dependencies were added in the project for various plugins used in the project. Using dependencies in the XML document helps for the successful execution of test cases in different machines. The dependencies used in the project were WebDriver dependency, Selenium dependency, TestNG dependency, Extend Report dependency, and Apache PY dependency. Thank you. And now Prachi will take over from here.
Thank you, Ankit. So we have used the config properties file to store all the external data and values which were used throughout the project, basically to log in into the page or even pass the values into various test cases. So here we can see the main values which we have stored in the config properties file are basically the URL of the ROS application and the login credentials for the same, the username and the password. Next slide, please. Then to have a more data-driven approach, we used Excel to store the data and various values. So a data-driven approach basically ensures that the solution and the plans are supported by a test of factual information, and basically that the data which we are passing into the test cases is not hard-coded into the code itself, and we can easily configure the data in one place itself. So here we can see the Excel file we used to store the login credentials of the site, and also some basic test values used for mainly testing the editing functionality, or even the adding new user, or some kind that kind of functionalities. So this approach helped us to mainly ease the change in credential and test values in their respective Excel sheets. Now Priyank will take over.
Yes, thank you, Prachi. Next slide. So as mentioned earlier by my friends, we did testing using TestNG framework. This was actually the first time we implemented something using any test framework for that fact. So for every class, for every page, there was, for example, there is a add client page, edit client page, add restaurant page. There was a corresponding test page for that to test all the corresponding test cases for that page. We used before method to initialize the setup. Then there were different test scenarios, like for example to search a client, whether it's a success or whether it's a failure, and then after method to close the system. So next slide. Okay, so we followed page object model and we created test class for each page, and combined them into a package. For example, for the client page, there were 3 to 4 several pages. For example, search client, add client, and edit client. Similarly, for the restaurants and users, we did the same and created test cases for all those. Next page. So this is an example. This is a screenshot. On the right side, we can see the structure of our code, different test packages, and under that there are different test classes. And on the left side, there is a screenshot of 2 test cases passed. Now Shivam will take on from here.
Thank you, Graham. Can you move to the next slide? So after all the tests were done and we have obtained the result individually, what we wanted to do was have a proper report format for all of those, because it will help us in better understanding what is going on with the test, and also present the report to the required parties in an appropriate manner. So what we did was we made use of a thing called testng.xml, in which we ran all our tests simultaneously using different package names, and we made them in different test cases, and put them in one suite all together and ran it using the thread format that testng.xml provides us with. So each test in the test cases were run at different points using the thread format that is provided in testng.xml. Can we move on to the next slide? This is the report format that we obtained. On the left side, you can see the report format generated using testng.xml. We also had to import a dependency for the same, that was extend report. And on the right side, it is a emailable report that is being generated by Maven project itself. So here you can see some of our test cases failing. The reason for the same being when we ran all our test cases all together, there was some issue with the page loading, and that was giving some errors. If you can move on to the next slide, I'll show you. Yeah. So here you can see I've taken into consideration of the test cases that failed. You can see a white box in the top left image, and that is a screenshot of the failure screen that we are stuck in. And I've expanded that screen, and you can see the home page did not load properly for some of the cases, and that is why it failed. On running individually, those cases were running fine, and we obtained a result giving us the accurate performance of our tests. Devika will take up from here.
Thank you, Shivam. Moving on, next slide, please. GitLab is used by each team for continuous integration of the code and coordinating so that each member had access to the up-to-date code. Our work was continuously monitored by the mentors, In this way, we were able to familiarize with using Git for a real team project, and it was a very important experience. This is a snippet of the GitLab repository after pushing the final code. Next slide, please. This shows the contribution from each team. Team A, consisting of Shivam, Priyank, Pranav, and me, worked on authentication features, super admin dashboard, the different client features, and restaurant features. Team B, consisting of Asta, Subhangshu, Diman, and Sahil, worked on Western configuration, user features, and filtering data. Team C, consisting of Rohit, Prachi, Ankit, and Adra, worked on user configuration, edit feature for user, and ROS team features. Next slide, please. Now, this is a snippet of the feedback form that was shared with us at the end of each day, where we could input the training experience. We had the provision to share the shortcomings we felt and give suggestions for improvement. It was mandatory for everyone, and we could also evaluate the trainer. Moving forward, the demo will now be shown by Shivam.
Let me know when my screen is visible. Can you see my screen?
Visible.
Yeah. Okay. So we created a Maven project for our final project, and the most important part was the pom.xml file, in which we were integrating a number of dependencies so that we don't have to bring in external jar files, so that it becomes usable globally. So what we did was we integrated a number of dependencies like Selenium and Common IO and even stack extent report as well for the report generation, as I mentioned earlier. Moving on, our base page consisted of our declaration of the WebDriver. Now, if you can see the path, we have kept our WebDriver here on the resources folder only to make it accessible to everyone a little easily and not make it according to the different systems individually. We've also made arrangements for deleting the cookies every time we run the code. We've made given implicit wait time so that the app does not fail as soon as it does not find anything. It waits for the whole page to load and then checks for the different elements. Moving on, I can show you a property manager that we created to read the config property file. Now, this config property file, also shown earlier by some of my friends, consists of the URL, the username and password that is being used by each one of us. So we made this a global element so that there is no redundancy in its usage. That is being read by the property manager file here. Now, we have also mentioned about data-driven approach. So what exactly was it? We had created an Excel, we have used a number of Excel files. As you can see, we have kept it in the resources folder here. Created a number of Excel files according to our needs. And this file right here, read Excel file, this class right here was helping us in reading those data from the Excel file and giving us in such a format that we can provide it as input to our code. We've also made arrangements for taking the screenshot of our code whenever required. Our main target behind this was to get the screenshot of the errors that we come across so that the user is able to figure out where the error exactly is. Now, as I mentioned about the report, we had created a listener for the same. Now, what we did in the listener was we implemented an interface called iTest Listener, which helps us in, if I can say, assigning actions to the different test results that we obtain, like for success, for failure, and all of those. We can assign actions what we need to do if we obtain this result. That is being done by our listeners. Apart from that, we have different page objects here, which consisted of, if I can show the example of this page. Now, we have taken up XPath and IDs of different elements. We created the element and used different functions to maybe click the element or get text from the element and check for the same. In our test folder, we are calling these pages. We're calling the page objects created. And we are also made a before method in which we are initializing all the complete code, creating all the page objects that we need. And then in the test method, we are calling in the pages and not like directly performing things here, but instead using functions to do the same. You may see a bit of thread or sleep here because we were facing some issue with the loading of the page, and we needed some time to let it load and then click on the different events. We've also made arrangements for an after test, which makes sure the driver quits the whole process because of redundancy issues, and so that we can save on memory. So this is what our the whole architecture looks like. We've also run some tests. If I can show you the report of the same. So as you can see, we had 18 test cases and 18 test classes in all total, which consist of 54 tests. This was for team A, as I'm depicting. 48 of them ran and 6 of them faced some issue, as I mentioned, because of the loading of the homepage, and some of the test cases we were facing some issue, but when ran individually, they were working fine. If I can show you one of the examples of the test cases. Suppose we are taking the example of login test because we are fetching data from Excel files, so that this will also depict the data-driven approach that we have used. You can see we are taking in data provider, declare a data provider, and we are taking in data from the Excel file. I'll run this for you. This takes up the URL from the config.properties file. Gets into the login page. And this data that is being fetched here is from the Excel sheet that we had provided earlier. So there are multiple test cases in this one, which was done simultaneously one by one. All of this data, as we can see, being provided, created, are set in different rows of the same Excel file. We've considered various cases like invalid password, invalid ID, not putting in any information in there and still clicking the submit button, putting in the valid credentials there and then clicking the submit button. So we have tested for all those approaches.
Shivam, have you tried any negative scenarios also in the automation?
Sorry, I did not get that.
I believe you just demonstrated that. I was asking, have you tried any negative scenarios? I mean, invalid data.
Yeah, we have tried putting in no data at all, and then putting in wrong password, putting in wrong email ID. We've tried all that, and then come up with a proper like test class. All of those combined.
Okay.
We did this while like this was the automated part of it. We also did this while doing the manual testing, so that we know what are the different cases we need to consider. We also checked if it was taking in any email or just taking in the proper format of an email. All those things also we have checked for it. You can see there are different cases for the same. No credential login and then incorrect password and all of those. In total, we have 7 of those. And this was the Excel file, if I can show, from where we were taking the data. These were the various Excel sheets which we used while taking the data for this test case. In the similar manner, we have different Excel file and we are using in different test cases. This is the basic approach of our project. Now we are open for Q&A.
Okay, guys. Someone presented in the beginning that you guys have documented number of test cases and there is a dashboard. Can someone explain about how the defects followed and how was your coordination with any of the development team? Can someone highlight any of the issues you guys identified for any of the application?
Let me demonstrate that for you if I may. So this was our project, work items. So we've logged in different test cases, as we've already seen, using the shared steps and all of those things. As far as the bugs are concerned, according to your question, what we did was so for every bug, we logged in the action steps, the expected results, the system that we are using it to test, and the acceptance criteria for the same. What would the expected the result that we need? So we merged it with one of the test cases that helped us find this bug, so that the development team will know how to reproduce this whole thing and where this is all coming from. We are not coordinated with the team yet, but we have made arrangement for them to know what the issue is, the root of the issue, and help them solve effectively.
Okay, thank you. Were you always able to identify the corresponding test case for the bug you identified?
No, actually, that we found the cases for almost, I guess, 70 to 75% of the bugs, because we were doing it on our own domain only, like the one that was distributed to us. But for some test case, but for some bugs, that was, let's say, a UI bug, there was no test case, just just an issue that was present in front of us. So we logged it without any test case and brought it in notice to our brought it in notice of our respective instructors.
Shivam, so your exploratory testing also resulted into some defects?
Yeah, such as you can see here, different bugs like there was no proper format for the zip code acceptance, or let's say mobile number that was being accepted was even less than 10-digit mobile number were getting accepted. If you were putting in 1 digit or 2 digit, it was getting accepted. And those small bugs we were able to identify through exploratory testing only.
Okay, and this the number 33 format kind of thing, and you did not have tests for these scenarios?
Yeah, actually, the cases that you see here resulting in different tests, like let's say edit client page. So in these pages, what we are doing is we have written various tests in which we are checking for every case. This is for the zip box only, but there were various input boxes there. Let's say the name, phone number, mobile number, email ID, zip code, all of those. So we have made different cases here in which we are checking invalid input for all of those, and what is the response of the website for the same. So I think somewhere here we can also find the one for the zip code.
So I will interject. This is my code only. So there was no test, automation test for zip code. It was more of exploratory test. We wrote an exploratory test case for it, and we did not write automation for it since it was not on the plans for automation. So that was something which could have been added.
Okay. One more question. Like you said that first you tested this application manually and then you kind of automated your tests. So
Yeah.
what was the criteria you used when you picked the tests which have to be automated?
We are actually given an Excel sheet where the whole project was divided into different segments, and each segment was divided for different participants. We had to choose between what kind of domain we will cover, and we had to make test cases for that particular domain.
Actually, we were given different test suites, and with that, we made different test cases in Azure DevOps, and with the help of that, we automated the test cases.
Understood. What I was trying to ask is that when you have organized yourself into different groups, but then say for example you had written 50 manual cases Have you automated all 50 of them, or you have not automated everything?
We automated as much as we could within the time frame. It was it was like we even added some test cases in that case from more than manual, like something which could have been done better in automation, like running different test cases at like trying different names and all. That was easier in automation than manual. So in those cases, the number of test cases actually increased. But for some cases like this zip code and all, this we did not try at that time in automation. This is something which we could have tried, but we decided not to do it because we had found other bugs as well, which were even more which we needed to be covered as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically in automation, we tested out the buttons and all. So like how the button works, how the form works, and how if the code flow of the code itself is working or not. So that was the main agenda for us.
And do you guys think all the test cases should be automated?
I believe most of them should be, but sometimes manually doing the test case is faster than doing it through automation. So in those cases, non-automation can be preferred.
If I can intervene, I
Then
would say
why do we learn automation?
Automation is mainly learned so that we can do some other test cases and more like we can increase the amount of data which we're testing, and we can also do it iteratively different times so that each time a developer makes a change to the website, we don't need to test it again manually. We can just run the script and it will do the testing for us.
Okay, makes sense. And here we have seen that I was just checking the code, and you have used the asserts for the right. Like for example, the line number 128 shows assert is equal to save successful. So you are just checking that save successful is being displayed or not. Okay. What if it was a different language? How would you have automated it?
For a different language, we would have forced to check the Xcode or the ID of the save successful message, and we have to match it with that. That could have been a better method actually.
Nice, nice. And what if it is it's required to assert different language as part of the script?
I will have to look into that actually. So it would be possible, obviously. So yeah, we could make a test for asserting a particular language code. We had to probably call a particular class which can provide us the language codes and check it with the website itself.
Nice. Okay.
Guys, not question only to from anyone could answer, the GET guys. When you completed the manual test cases, writing the test cases, and moving to automation, did you guys define any guidelines on how do we start with the automation framework, either relating to the page names, class names, whatever it could be?
Yeah, our instructor
Okay,
actually.
so we were provided with a structure actually, like we don't have to randomly put in any classes or names. We were provided with a structure, and we were instructed, to keep it as simple as possible. For example, if there is a package for client, under that we can have all the classes, all the methods for like to add client, edit client, deactivate client, and search client. And similarly for all the restaurants. So we can simplify things and we cannot complicate things. So we were given these instructions to keep it page wise only, not to have things of one page into another, and similarly create test cases for that.
Okay. I don't know. Someone was also explaining about avoiding the duplicate classes and methods, etc. So anything related to that, you guys gave a thought that some guidelines required. I mean, I'm not saying the technical aspect, but the common, if there is a group of 10 members who are working on the automation, so how do you work in a group without any guidelines in that angle? Any thought been given?
Yeah, we took the base classes and all, and we designed we divided our work between different groups and made sure like we knew we were on the same page. We had daily meetings and all. Like in our case, it was almost hourly meetings to discuss at what stage we are and who's pushing the code and who is pulling the code. and who's making changes to, and so that all merge conflicts can also be resolved easier. And
what really
design.
helped us was we divided each, like we were 4 members in one group. So for our respective group, what we did was we had 4 domains to take care of. We had login, we had homepage, some functionalities on homepage, we had client page and restaurant page. What we did was divided them equally among four people. Like one person was taking care only the login page. So the classes that person would create for individual requirement would be obviously be named differently, and the same classes that like the home page and base page, those were created on the very first day, so that everyone can add on to that and not create one for own self. So that really helped differentiate.
You got a very good convenience of distributing the pages into individual, but in reality that may not be practical. So
and also we were aware of each other's progress. Like there were 2 or 3 common pages, base page and home page. So we were aware of each other's progress, like what other team member is adding on to that common page and changing to that common page, so that we can also incorporate into our code also.
Good. Actually, the only thing I just wanted to, I'm not evaluating your understanding, but the only thing just wanted to convey that before you get into any sort of deep concepts of the automation or the frameworks, the basic guidelines on how the variable to be defined or the method names or the page names, etc. It is an important thing that if let's say multiple resources are working on the same page of web page, it is important to have some guidelines and how things to be defined so that everyone follows that and there is no confusion at the end of the day. That's what I was trying to. Anyway, good job.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, so to conclude, I just want to mention that we came in here as rookies, some of us with a little bit of internship experience behind us, and others we were very new to the corporate setup altogether. But we can say that in the span of this last, I guess, 33 days, we've been trained not only in our respective domains, but also given an overall understanding of how we need to carry ourselves as professionals. I hope all of us we bring value to the teams we go into. We're looking forward to working with all of you and learning from your experience. So that's it from our side. Thank you.
Not sure if Kavya is there. Kavya, are you there?
Looks like she's away.
Yes. Not sure what is the next step.
Okay, if there is nothing, we can continue with some question and answers. So, so I just had a question for GETs as part of the training. Did you just play around with Postman manual or Postman automation too?
It was more manual for us, I believe. Like we did not deep dive into Postman automation.
Okay. Okay. Did you try Postman scripts being checked in into Git?
Not that either. We just used the Postman GUI. We wrote some scripts in it. It was more or less like a manual only, but a bit of automation in it. Like We wrote multiple scripts and ran it at the same time to test out a website, API, test out an API. But we did not check it into Git or anything like that.
Okay, so have we confirmed that all the presentations are over?
Yes, Kavya, more or less all done. We just had an exchange of some information from the GETs.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Vasu. Could you come again?
Yeah, the presentations are over and we had some exchange of information between GET and us. So I don't know what will be the next step.
Perfect. No, that was all. We were expecting the presentations would actually go on longer, but it's good that we were able to finish it well within the time. If at all there are any questions that the GTs want to ask about their role or anything related on that, if there is anything, now might be the right time. If any of our GTs have any question for the SMEs.
Just a general question, Kavya. Like, since we're already interacting with our mentors and also no questions regarding the projects as such, but what next for us now? If you could provide a bit of a roadmap sort of thing.
This was Sahil, right?
Yes.
Sahil, you will get information, you'll get a mail regarding this very soon, and you'll have all the information there.
Okay, thank you.
So mostly within maybe, I think by next week, you will have a formal induction and orientation into Amadeus as a permanent employee, which will be a 3-day session. And after that, you will be integrated to the team as business as usual.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Kavya, though, I had a doubt. My buddy actually he wanted to give me a KT on what project I'll be working with once I join the team from tomorrow itself. So is it okay if I attend it for tomorrow itself? Because I told him I'll be free.
Yeah, of course you can attend it. Given the fact that you have time in hand, you can go ahead and attend it. As long as it doesn't come in the way of anything else for you, you can go ahead and attend it. Not a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, same thing actually. Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask, since we asked the Pratyan people and they said that this was the last day of training. So our managers were just asking us if they could connect tomorrow morning and like have a, session kind of.
Sure, no problem. As long as it doesn't come in the way of anything else that is scheduled for you, it should be fine.
Great. Thank you, Kavya.
No problem. Okay, well, if we are all good, then thank you all so much. The trainer, all the trainees, and all the SMEs, of course, thank you so very much. And I thank you so much for wrapping this up well within the time also. Of course, if there is anything that our trainees need to ask, please do not hesitate. You all know my email ID. Go ahead and mail me, and I'll be more than happy to help you all. And more than happy to connect you with the right contact if required. So that's all. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you all. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All the best.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.